Title. The end. Question mark.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's... Good job. Good job.
You liked it?
Of course I
You
did.
didn't laugh at the scene in the bar?
I thought it was funny, but I wanted to hear the rest.
Do you have any thoughts? Notes?
No, I just enjoyed it. That's my note, you know? Please write more.
Seems a little insincere.
What? No.
You don't have to mollycoddle me. I want to improve my writing. Tell me your real thoughts.
All right, well, I'm not a huge fan, personally, of the whole 3 weeks earlier teaser thing. I feel like, you know, we should start our stories where they begin, not start them where they get interested.
Get out.
So I just finished up the first season of Hazbin Hotel, and we have a lot to talk about here. I do want to say before we get into this that I did honestly try with this show, even though I'm not a huge fan of Vivzy Pop's style of humor.
I've been a bad boy, and I need a big, strong daddy to put me in my place.
It's not really for me, but that wasn't the biggest component. I still thought that the idea of Hazbin Hotel was worth taking a look because it's a creative concept, but the way that the show goes about executing it is very bad. And we're gonna get into that. We're gonna go over every aspect of the show, but I also want to say that there are going to be some good parts that I actually did like. So sit back, relax, and let's go through this hellhole.
Oh, brother!
So the first episode starts off with a story sequence, which wouldn't really be that bad, but I think because they give us so much at first, it feels a little overwhelming, and it starts not to really make a lot of sense in the foundation of the show. So let's take this bit by bit, and I'll try to explain what I mean by that. So the angels created the universe with the intention of being good. Whatever this is supposed to mean, Charlie's father Lucifer, who was an angel in heaven, he saw things being run differently than the other angels. He was apparently a dreamer with fantastical ideas.
Lucifer was one of these angels. He was a dreamer with fantastical ideas for all of creation.
But the other angels disagreed with him and kept casting the universe in their image. The first question I have is, what state the universe was in to make Lucifer want to change things so badly? I understand that maybe the angels were imposing their beliefs on everyone, but why would free will change things for the better in Lucifer's mind? They don't really ever explore that. I know that they're supposed to be implying that the angels were abusing their power, but they don't really show that abuse for me to understand what it is that Lucifer exactly wanted to change. That should be explained in this backstory so we understand Lucifer's intentions. If the show made it clear more about what Lucifer views as free will, I feel like I would understand his motivation more, but I just don't the way it's currently set up. So eventually Adam and Lilith are made, the first humans, but Adam demands control over Lilith, and she breaks free of him only to meet Lucifer and fall in love with him. They wanted to spread free will to the rest of the universe. If Adam was able to demand control and Lilith was able to break free of his control, wouldn't that imply that they already had free will in the universe? And if so, did free will exist in the angels universe? Or is it that angels are allowed to have free will but no one else in the universe is supposed to have it? Just very confusing there. If they're already supposed to have free will, then why would Eve, who is Adam's new bride, have to eat the fruit of knowledge to attain free will? And where did Eve even come from? Was she made as the next human after Lilith broke free? Did the angels not punish her for this? Were the first humans supposed to be beings that were able to think on their own and have free will? If that's the case, then why would Lucifer want to spread that to people? The fruit of knowledge is also vague. What is knowledge in this context? The term good is also too vague, and the words that describe him, like dreamer and fantastical, are also too vague. Why didn't Lucifer give the fruit to Lilith if he wanted to bestow free will? Why did it have to be Eve? Why does that immediately cause havoc? Can only humans eat this fruit? Was she as controlling as Adam? Does Eve understand the concept of evil, or is it that it's only obtained through the fruit. There's just so many questions as to why and how things are set up, and it just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I guess it's fair to say that we could get answers more with time, but starting off the show with such specific details as to how heaven and hell were created, I feel like it should make sense in the foundation, and it already just doesn't. So after Eve ends up causing disaster to the universe, Lucifer and Lilith end up getting blamed for this and end up getting banished to the underworld, which they eventually create as hell. Lucifer became depressed in all of this and lost his will to dream, but Lilith started thriving and created a successful underworld with more beings and more power. But then Lilith passes her dream down to Charlie. What is it that Lilith exactly did to make hell so powerful? Why are the angels immediately intimidated by this? Did the sinners and demons of hell ever attempt to attack? It doesn't really seem so, since the show says how demons aren't really able to get into heaven. If hell became so powerful, then why is it that they aren't as strong as heaven at this point? The show doesn't explain why they're still inferior or weaker to them. I get that the show probably wants me to assume because they're angels that they're just stronger than demons because they harbor goodness. But if demons in hell are becoming more powerful, shouldn't evil also have a certain level of power that could defeat them? Because heaven is so intimidated by hell and its increasing power, they now send angels down to exterminate the overpopulation of hell every year, which again isn't a bad premise in theory, and I find it interesting because it's the angels that are doing this. I just feel like the show should show why heaven is so intimidated by this, not just the fact that they're overpopulated. They should tell us that maybe some demons in hell actually did try to overthrow heaven and maybe almost got away with it. Then it would make sense why they're so afraid and have to keep the population of hell at a certain point so that doesn't happen again. But it's really just because hell exists and their population is growing that makes the angels want to do this. All they show from any of the demons in hell is everybody being dicks to each other, and it makes it really hard for me to be like, yeah, these are the guys that we're rooting for, other than the fact that the show just tells us that the main characters are the ones in hell, and because of that fact, we automatically have to side with them. The show doesn't really go into how awful the state of hell is for the people in it and how awful their experiences are, other than a very surface level way of doing it. We don't really explore the people or what heaven would mean for them or what their image of heaven is. That's what makes it hard for me to get invested in this premise. Hell on its own already gives a negative connotation, so unless the show really establishes to me why it is that souls in hell want to be redeemed, I'm not really going to care. So the backstory is told to us through Charlie, which, I don't know, it makes me feel like it's harder for us to sympathize with Lucifer when he does show up in the show. Instead of setting up an intriguing plot, the show just plops us down into the hotel. Charlie has kind of already accepted everything that she has to do as far as running this hotel. I'm still just lost on what the vision is for hell, and was this the vision that Lilith wanted when thinking of free will? If so, then why do the people in hell need to be redeemed? Why is it important to Charlie other than the fact that the mother wanted this? If I could get an understanding, I guess, of how hell was better for a lot of souls before maybe Lilith disappeared, then I could understand why it's important for Charlie to restore that to the way it was, but it doesn't really explain the state of hell and it being a safe place for souls. Without showing these things in some way or expressing it through the characters we come across, it's hard to get invested in the redemption of hell itself or the characters in it. Is the goal of the show to redeem people in hell so they can end up being sent to heaven, or is it to somehow make hell a better place for everybody so that they don't have to go to heaven? It's really hard to tell what the aim of the show is. What does Charlie want hell to be when all of this is over? It's very unclear. I understand the redemption part, and that part is interesting, how there's this hotel hell that brings sinners in that want to redeem themselves so they can go to heaven. But is that the overall goal, or is it to redeem hell and the structure of hell itself so that it's not so miserable for the souls that are in it? The show also doesn't really explore a lot of settings in hell that much outside of a few locations like bars or a few streets, I guess. From our perspective, obviously, we see what's wrong with it. It's disgusting, everybody's rude to each other, no one gives a shit about anything, and I get that's the main point. It's just, I wish that the show kind of focused more on maybe the individuals that do want to change, or maybe they focus on Charlie trying to understand why it is that the people in hell don't really care about redeeming themselves. It just seems very hollow, this idea of redemption, and I wish that it could be more explored in a nuanced way that kind of shows these people or these demons in hell that have kind of given up on themselves to the point where they don't care, and show Charlie's reaction to that so she understands the hopelessness that these demons are feeling in hell and how they don't really see any other option. I think that the arc that they're going for with Charlie is trying to restore faith in hell, getting them to care about protecting themselves and wanting to better the state of hell. But Charlie says how the kingdom was something her mother cared about but abandoned 7 years ago. We usually see this where a parent has a specific dream and their kid wants to carry it out. I guess I just want the character to maybe discover things about hell that she didn't know before in some capacity that makes her even more determined to fix this broken system, but it just seems like she cares because the character has to care. There are certain times we do see her genuinely getting angry for her friends, and that's stuff that I do like to see. It shows that she's passionate about certain things. It's just, I want to see more of her determination, maybe like in spite of her parents, to make it even better than how they wanted it. Maybe her discovering things that they did that she doesn't agree with, which would make her want to provide an even better place for these demons. Like I said before, because the show just thrusts us into this hotel premise, it's hard for me to feel invested in it. It feels like there's no setup, so once we get to the whole hotel part, it feels like it makes sense. If we had a setup to hell in the first place and why the hotel being there would benefit in some way, I would feel more engaged with the whole hotel idea. And I should probably bring up that other big problem, and that's the fact that this show, it feels like it expects me to know things outside of the show establishing it, like relying on the independent pilot from YouTube to know everything about the show and everything that it's about. And that's really not something that you should do if you're establishing a show on an actual network, or in this case a streaming service. I think in that case, that's why it feels so detached, or why I feel like something's missing in some way. So I haven't watched the pilot of Hazbin Hotel since it first came out. In preparation for this video, I decided to rewatch it, and I have to say that it is actually much better than the final product, I guess, or the actual show itself. The pilot feels more grounded. It doesn't have the pressure of the hell and heaven conflict. It sticks to Charlie struggling to get anybody to take the whole hotel seriously at all. The extermination is implied, but it's not really given a lot of detail like the show goes into it, which I think works in its favor because it leaves more to be desired. I have to say I do understand why people are upset about the voice actor thing. Overall, after rewatching the pilot, I think that most of the voice actors, probably except for the Husk voice actor, were better than the final ones that we have. It is kind of a shame because most of these voice actors could have actually gotten a chance to work in the industry, but they decided to go in the more profitable route. I also also liked the comedy here in the pilot. The motivations also feel clearer. The setup for everything feels like it happens in a natural progression. We even see a better depiction of how Hell viewed the extermination, and no one really gives a shit about the Princess of Hell coming on a news program for an interview. Look at the way they treat her.
You might be some royal big shot, but that doesn't mean shit to me. I'm too rich and too influential to give a flying fuck about what some tuck-swearing demon princess wants to advertise. Tell us about this new passion project you've been insistently pestering our news station about.
As most of you know, I was born here in Hell, and growing up, I always tried to see the good in everything around me. Hell is my home, and you are my people.
What in the 9 circles makes you think a single denizen of Hell would give 2 shits about becoming a better person? You have no proof that this little experiment even works. You want people to be good just because?
Well,
After the disaster of the interview, we see Charlie desperately try to get in contact with her mother, only to get a voicemail. The pilot establishes more to me why Charlie is motivated to redeem sinners than the show actually does, because it does feel like we have more of a personal motivation here, instead of it feeling like this sense of justice type of character. Angel Dust feels like his character isn't just the one that flirts or constantly brings up sex. He actually seems like the person to not give a shit as long as it benefits him, and someone that doesn't pay attention to things outside of himself. Unlike the actual show, it feels like they actually show things in the pilot rather than quickly running us through conflict after conflict. The scaled down aspect of the pilot helps in its favor. It leaves stuff to be desired about the show, but once we get to the actual show, the things we wanted to know or were intrigued by in the first place feel very shallow and unexplored. For example, here in the pilot, this line in particular tells me that Lucifer seemed like he was supposed to be more sinister and cold.
don't worry. I picked up one thing from my dad.
You don't take shit from other demons.
Possibly abusive towards Charlie.
I don't know what I'm doing. I could really use some advice, Mom. I think Dad was right about me.
But in the show, he doesn't seem like that at all, even though the show says how she has daddy issues.
She tries to work through her daddy issues.
The pilot somehow makes me believe that without even having to say the word at all. It also seems like they've decided to go a different direction with Husk, because this character...
What, you think you can buy me with a wink and some cheap booze? Well, you can!
And this character...
It seems like, I don't know, you might need a bartender to talk to.
aren't the same. I also have to say that the animation suffers in this because Vivzi's animation is much more fluid, and this animation is a lot more choppy, which is really unfortunate because I do like the animation in the pilot. The show really fails to deliver on anything that the pilot felt like it was setting up to do. Over the last 5 years, it should have been here where these ideas should have been fleshed out or thought of in a way that doesn't feel so rushed. This would have been the point when there should have been some restructuring of the pilot for the actual show. This way it doesn't feel like we're just being plopped into this world without knowing who these characters are, or feeling like we should know these characters in some way. And this is where we get to my first big issue with this show, and that's the pacing. Everything happens very fast. It also feels like there's been a whole season worth of things that have already been introduced, and I'm just tuning into the second season without knowing any of the context. Okay, so let's go over some of the characters. The main character obviously being Charlie, I think has the potential to be an interesting protagonist, being the overly optimistic and slightly overbearing one to her friends. However, there isn't much more to her than that, and the sense of justice to redeeming Hell doesn't really feel like it comes from a natural place, but other because she feels like she has to do this. Then there's Angel Dust, who is a person at the hotel that is wanting to be redeemed, and it is revealed that he sold his soul to somebody named Val, which I guess in this world is his pimp technically. There's Lucifer, there's Adam, who was the first human and the first human soul to be in heaven, and he is also the one that leads in the exorcism of the demons in hell. There's Vaggie, who is Charlie's girlfriend, Husk, who is the bartender and who was an overlord that sold his soul to Alistair, who was also one of the main characters in the show that is a demon, a radio demon. There are other minor characters like Nifty and Sir Pentious, but they don't really play much of a role, and they're more just comedic relief. Now, that's not too bad of a setup of characters here, and that's not really what my problem is with it. It's just, I think, the way the show sets up everything and doesn't really establish a setting before jumping into the main conflicts between hell and heaven. They really should establish hell and everything about that before going into the whole war between heaven and hell. I think because they just established that very quickly, now we have to jump Charlie right into this conflict to try to stop the extermination from happening. It's hard to have time to care when it feels like so much is being thrown at you at once. So episode 1 starts off, I guess, fair enough, where they're starting off with making a commercial for the hotel, and funny hijinks ensue when they try to make the commercial, which is a good place to start, I think. But I think where the show really should have kind of slowed down is Charlie going to meet with Adam to try to convince them of the hotel, because currently they don't really have anything to present to them really other than the idea of it. They don't have any evidence that it really works, so they probably should have waited on this, and also waited on the reveal of Adam, I think, just to kind of show how intimidating he is. I think giving away too much too soon, especially when it comes to your villains, can make them become less threatening. And these episodes, the beginning ones, should be more establishing them struggling to get the hotel to actually work and to appeal to the people of hell. And then maybe halfway through the season, we start to notice that the hotel is actually working, and the angels start to notice that maybe. Episode 2 introduces Sir Pentious, which is just a comedic relief character, so we don't really need to care that much about him, I guess. On the other side of things, we get introduced to Vox, a CEO for a tech company in hell, and he seems to be hypnotizing the people there as well. I think this is an interesting setup with a tech CEO that makes tech to fight off the angels, and it also makes sense that he would have a rivalry with Alistair, who is trying to control the demons with his radio broadcasts. I just think that the way things are introduced is just very shallow. We have musical numbers in this show, which again isn't a problem, but every episode has one or even two that I think detract from the show itself. And in this case, this musical number in episode 2 was just there to establish the rivalry between Alistair and Vox. Honestly, I would like this more if it didn't feel like the song only exists and the character really only exists to be the rival to Alistair. The song itself feels like it's just there so Alistair can one-up Vox and make it look like Alistair is like the best guy ever, and it just feels hollow in that way, where I don't feel invested in the rivalry. I guess other than establishing that Vox is the company that makes tech, there really isn't any other reason to bring up this character other than to put Alistair on a pedestal as being this really cool radio demon. While that's going on, at the hotel, everyone is still getting to know Sir Pentious, and for some reason, Angel Dust is bothered by the way he is getting treated because he actually wants to change. Vaggie tells him how he's never once tried to change, and this visibly bothers him. However, up until this point, he hasn't really given the impression that he wants to redeem himself at all.
I'm choosing to be here, and I think it's all stupid. We're in hell, Toots. That's kind of the end of the road, ain't it? But hey, whatever means I can keep crashing here rent-free.
It's hard to feel bad for a character that has only had one trait up until that point.
I've been a bad boy, and I need a big, strong daddy to put me in my place. This body was made to be exploited. What? You don't love being here with me, Whiskers?
Call me Whiskers again and I'll jam that bottle down your throat.
Kinky. Come on, keep talking dirty. No activity requires more trust than BDSM, baby. No bond stronger than those formed through bondage. I got the stamina, I got the legs, I got the lung capacity. Oh, I got the legs. The gag reflex, the holes in the chest. I got the legs, I got the lung capacity. I got the legs, I got the lung capacity. The gag reflex, the holes in the chest. The gag reflex.
All right, I get it!
I think the the show just wants me to feel bad because it's the character we're supposed to feel bad for. It's also revealed, though, that he's been getting threatening calls from Val because he hasn't been showing up for work, which again, this is setting up a storyline, and that's again something that I will give the show credit for. When it actually sets up a storyline and actually wants to explore it, it will do that. It's just, unfortunately, at least for right now, it doesn't seem like it's doing that a whole lot.
Big, strong daddy.
So then we get into episode 3, where there is a meeting with the higher ups, and Alistair attends this. One of the leaders of the V's, which is a trio of overlords in hell, which I think is supposed to be the Vox guy, Val, and whoever this other girl is. She reveals that she finds a decapitated head of the angels, and this reveals that they can be killed, when the show has established up until this point that they can't be killed, and that this head was found in the last extermination raid. She wants to go to war, but one of the higher ups disagrees and tells her that they don't know if they should go to war without knowing anything about this.
You've been warned. Oops, did I strike a nerve? 'Cause when I brought out the angel's head, couldn't help but observe.
Because they reveal so quickly that an angel can be killed after establishing how no one has been able to kill angels, it just makes the angels not look as threatening when information is delivered in this way. It seems like such a huge reveal that should have happened way later in the season, but for some reason they're giving the reveal away now. And not even that, but they give the reveal of who actually did it. It's revealed that this woman named Carmilla was the one who decapitated the exorcist, but she wanted to keep it hidden because she doesn't want a war starting and her losing one of the people that she loves, which again is usually kind of a general thing that most people don't want to start a war for. But it just doesn't really make sense to me why, if she found this way that can stop the angels from doing this thing that is killing their people every year, then why wouldn't she want to attempt that, and why would she want to hide that? It just doesn't make sense. And I feel like her losing her loved ones isn't really enough of an excuse, especially when it seems that hell has a way higher population of heaven anyway, so it doesn't really make any sense that they wouldn't try this out. But all of this is told to us through a song, and we have just been introduced to this Carmilla lady maybe 5 minutes ago in the show, and I think it's the show's way of trying to go for a character that has been deeply affected by war, but again only tells us that and doesn't really show it. If this reveal were at the end of the season, then it would have felt more intriguing, and I'd be filled more with curiosity about how someone was able to achieve this, but it's just brushed off and no one really tries to investigate the situation anyway. While this is happening, Vaggie decides to take charge of the group, but it doesn't really feel like it goes anywhere meaningful. The group tries trust exercise, I guess, but it's just a way to have some comedic bits that aren't really that comedic, and it doesn't strengthen the group really any, so it doesn't really matter. The show also doesn't seem like it knows what it wants to do as far as redemption, so silly trust exercises and activities like this are the things that we're seeing as far as redemption goes. And the episode, I think, wants me to feel something for Vaggie, like her running the group would mean something, but it doesn't really establish what that would mean other than gaining Charlie's approval. Plus, the characters just really aren't interesting, so when we see them interacting off of one another, it just really isn't that fun. Vaggie's song is also intertwined with the song Carmilla sings, because I think the show wants me to see them as parallels, but it hasn't really shown anything meaningful for me to know anything about their characters to even see them as being similar to each other at all. And because of a significant reveal that happens later in the season, I think they want me to think this is a meaningful song for Vaggie, but we really just haven't established anything about her personality other than being like the laid-back girlfriend of Charlie. So we go on to episode 4, and I'm actually going to say this, but I think that this episode is probably the only good episode in the whole season. And the reason why I think that is probably because the show tones down everything as far as the conflict between heaven and hell and all the grand stakes, and actually just focuses on the characters for once. And it starts to give us insight into the character a little bit, and I think that's why the episode doesn't feel so clunky and fast-paced. So in the beginning, the episode has a good setup establishing Angel's usual behavior. He and Husk kind of have a back and forth going that's, you know, getting a little heated, but then he gets a call from Val, and this shows him visibly afraid.
Hello? Yeah, I'm No, I'm not. But, yeah. I'll be right there.
And this is where I start to feel more interested in Angel Dust, because we start to see that vulnerability coming out and not just that one trait where he's flirting and just saying a bunch of sexy things to everybody. So he ends up leaving the hotel and Charlie goes after him, interrupting his shoot, which ends up pissing Val off.
Because I could make you a star, make us both richer than, well, your papito.
Fuck no!
Val takes Angel Dust into a dressing room and then ends up beating him and threatening him to get Charlie out of there or he's going to hurt her. So Angel Dust ends up going out there and being extra harsh with Charlie to make her leave, which again I think is a nice touch because it does show even though he's trying to protect her, he doesn't want to hurt her. To me, this is really good character building. It really does show that even though he has presented himself as not trying or not caring, that he does care about Charlie, and that also could imply that he really does care about being redeemed. He just doesn't believe that he can. So then after this scene there is a music number, and I think it fits and really captures Angel Dust's sense of entrapment, especially the way this line is delivered at the end.
I'm sick of the poison, wish I had something to live for tomorrow.
And it just sounds so heartbreaking and so well delivered that you do start to feel for the character being trapped in this abusive situation for making the decisions that they've made in their life. This whole episode so far has really just focused on Angel Dust. We haven't really had any other subplots, just dumping a bunch of information about everything. It's just focusing on the character. And I think that's why it works so well and why it was the one episode that I found myself actually watching and feeling invested in. So after this, we see Angel Dust go back to the hotel and demand a drink from Husk, who suggests that he not drink his problems away. This starts an argument between them and Angel Dust storms out.
You look like shit.
Not possible. Just a long shoot.
Time.
No, sure. Then where should I look? In your bedroom, maybe? Under the covers?
Ass out of yourself with this fake bullshit.
Call me fake one more time, motherfucker! I dare you.
Fake.
You would be fucking lucky to get a chance to fuck me! You know how much I'm worth? You know how many people would kill to have Angel Dust come onto them? Fuck you!
Charlie then demands that Husk go find him because she feels guilty about what she did earlier. Husk agrees and finds him in a bar snorting cocaine and a guy that just shrugged his drink. He stops him before that happens. This is where we have a really good emotional scene that feels earned because the show did the work of building it up. As he's walking away from Husk, we see that he's hesitant, that he doesn't want to break that wall. And when Husk says this,
nobody in that hotel cares who you are, how famous, how hot, so you might as well just cut the act. Maybe I'd treat you better if you were real and not some bullshit version of yourself, always pushing my boundaries.
It really hits him, and you can see the emotions conveyed in both of the characters' reactions, which is why the scene actually feels really well done. And it really just brings up a good conversation between them, and Angel Dust finally explains.
It's not an act! It's who I need to be! And this is my escape, where I can forget about it all, how much I hate everything. A place where I can get high and not have to think about how much it hurts. And maybe, if I can ruin myself enough in the process, if I end up broken, I won't be his favorite toy anymore. And maybe he'll let me go.
And Husk explains how he made a deal with Alistair after losing everything and gambling everything away.
It was nice to have that power, but when you're dealing in souls while also being a gambler, the stakes are pretty high. Losing a few hands can be more than a little dangerous. But when you're down on your luck, you turn to anything to keep you afloat.
He was an overlord at one point, but now he's not. And now he's working as a bartender and under Alistair's control, which again shows that there's something between the characters that they have in common about feeling trapped.
So I know what it's like to regret the choices made.
And they both realize in that moment that when they're, putting those walls down and talking, there's actually something between them that they can actually feel comfort in. That's why I think the song Loser Baby works well, unlike the other songs in the show, because it did the work to establish the characters' feelings. Don't get me wrong, I love the song Loser Baby, but I do think that it falls into that same category of telling us about the characters' feelings and thoughts without displaying any of them beforehand. How is Husk damaged? Just because they say he's a gambler and an overlord at one point, it doesn't show us the ways he's damaged. And I'm sure he does feel that way about himself, but the show has not really given us anything to work off of. From what we've seen so far, we've only seen a calm bartender that loses his patience with angel dust. We do have some problems to cover that undermine the point that the episode is trying to make about sexual abuse, assault, and rape, especially of sex workers. The show wants me to take seriously that angel dust is in a situation that is uncontrollable and his abuser is constantly being fetishized, and it really feels like fan fiction writing at times. Viv has a tendency in her shows to have ship bait characters, and I'm not really a huge fan of that. It just reduces the character down to the ship and not every other aspect of them. Don't get me wrong, it does feel like she's trying a little bit more with Angel Dust and Husk, but at the same time though, the whole thing with Val just kind of rubs me the wrong way. Overall, I think this episode actually is a good starting point and actually showing a genuine connection between two of the characters in the hotel instead of feeling forced through some wacky activity. So now let's move on to episode 5 and 6. Lucifer as a character confuses me in general. He keeps in contact with his daughter, however acts like a giddy child when his daughter calls him.
Daughter calling? Oh, hello, Charlie. Hey, Char.
If her father is supposed to be so depressed since being banished to hell, then why does he seem so unaffected by the state that hell is in currently? Why is it that they even have a strained relationship if he's able to see her when he wants or he's able to call her? I know they said that he's depressed and I get that, but it just doesn't seem like enough of an excuse to kind of explain the issues in their relationship. When we first see this character, he's not even depressed or angry or cold or reserved in any way. The show doesn't even make it hard for Charlie to get in contact with him to show how distant he is with her. The daddy issue thing feels like it was tacked on because the show's tragic backstory equals a developed character thing.
She tries to work through her daddy issues.
What's the holdup? You got daddy issues?
No, we just have never been close. After he and Mom split, he never really wanted to see me. He calls sometimes, but only if he's bored or needs me to do something.
Daddy issues.
If you don't show us how Charlie really struggles with the father's lack of presence, or how his actions have made her the way she is, then her bad relationship with her father means nothing. We don't see her pissed off, really. Why is the dad able to go see her now? Because she invites him? Why hasn't he gone to see her before? I understand being afraid to see her because you guys might have issues, but if the show doesn't establish anything as to why they're distant, then it doesn't really make sense, and it's hard for me to relate to a guy that's trying to stay away from his kid, especially in this case where he's kind of like the catalyst for why things are the way they are in hell in the first place. So it's just, it just doesn't work. So once Lucifer does show up, he gets jealous of Charlie and Alistair's relationship, and then a song begins where the dad says how much of a father he's been.
I'll rig the game for you because I'm the world. Champagne fountains, caviar mountains, that's just a start. Others say that in your needy hour, there's no substitute for pure angelic power. Who just happens to also be your blood.
While Alistair also says that he's been there for Charlie since day one.
I'm truly honored that we built such a bond. You're like the child that I wish that I had. It's a little funny, you could almost call me Dad.
which I guess is technically true if you count just being in the hotel as being there. But I have not seen this character try to form any sort of meaningful bond with Charlie that would indicate that he has been a father figure at all. And this actually gives me secondhand embarrassment.
Nope. I guess that's why Charlie called it the Hazbin Hotel. Ha ha ha.
It was actually my idea.
Well, it's not very clever.
Fuck you.
So this character is Mimsy, and she is a troublemaking character. The character isn't really funny in any way. The character to give us a little bit of a backstory on Alistair and how he became this way. So apparently he just popped up in hell and people started ignoring him at first, but then overlords started going missing and their screams would be heard over radio broadcast. So that was Alistair's way of showing them how dangerous he is. And I guess it's a fine backstory. It's fine. It feels like this character is supposed to be the cool demon character. And even though he's strong, it's like the show doesn't really want me to know anything else that might be interesting, like flaws or anything that would make this character somewhat nuanced. So back to Charlie, however, where Husk tries to get Alistair to get rid of Mimsy before she starts trouble, and Alistair does reassert his control over Husk when Husk actually stands up to him in some regard. And I do think this is a good scene because, again, it does establish the control that he has over him, but at the same time. So back to Charlie and Lucifer. She's asking for a meeting in heaven to convince them about the hotel again, even though she already tried that in the first episode and they weren't listening, and much hasn't changed, so I don't really understand her motivation here. Lucifer says how he's already tried to reason with them, but they won't listen to him. Like, why would they do this anyway if they're just unwilling to listen in the first place, especially since Charlie has already attempted this? It just feels like Lucifer is more of a plot device to explain how Charlie was able to get to heaven in this case, and to have this meeting rather than an actual plot that resolves their relationship in a meaningful way or even indicates that they're on the path to a healthy father-daughter relationship. So this is where another song starts, and their relationship seems to be resolved for someone that has daddy issues, but nothing about the relationship has actually been discussed. So there's nothing to resolve, really. Like, why did he even stay away from her after Lilith has been gone? That doesn't really make any sense. The song then explains again all the feelings that she has had for her father since childhood.
When I was young, I didn't really know you at all. The tales about your lofty dreams, imagining it could be me, that show me dreams can be worth fighting for.
But instead of showing us this through the show over time, they just explain it all in a musical number, so it feels hollow, because they just feed us information that we haven't really seen at all in the show. There isn't anything wrong with a song giving us information, but it's usually when the show has already given enough context where that information being expressed through the song emphasizes the character's feelings in some way, rather than just relaying the information just to get it across without the weight that the emotions should convey. We haven't really seen or heard much from how Charlie views her father, so hearing her sing this out of nowhere doesn't feel rewarding. So after this song, everything is good, and we move on to episode 6, where Charlie and Vaggie are preparing to go to heaven, while the rest of the Hazbin crew go out for a night on the town because they've had it really rough, apparently. So then this character shows up. This character apparently is Cherry Bomb. She's obviously supposed to be the character that's supposed to enable Angel Dust to party. So once Charlie and Vaggie go to heaven, we get this obnoxious and useless song that doesn't really add anything about heaven at all. And then Adam and this other angel call Vaggie aside and reveal to the audience for the first time something like this that's very huge. I want to emphasize that. And they decide to reveal it in this way, where Adam demands her to shut down the hotel. She objects, and then this is where the show hits us with the fact that Vaggie has been an angel that has killed thousands of demons. And I just can't believe that the show is revealing this in such a way that it feels like it doesn't take any of this seriously in any capacity. I also, again, we've barely seen Adam, so like his threat on Vaggie doesn't really mean much, just so we can kind of reiterate this is the type of writing we're dealing with here.
It's why I named you after the best thing ever, Vaggie.
Actually, it's pronounced Vaggie.
I guess I'll just tell Little Miss Butterflies and Rainbows that she's been fucking someone who's killed thousands of her people. I'm sure your relationship will be fine. See you in court.
Your Highness, forgive me, but what are the Hellspawn doing here?
Well, you failed to control the demon's unrest, and now Lucifer's involved.
My dad just called. He said that the leader of the Angel Army wants to meet. He asked if I could go instead.
But
during the court sequence, Charlie starts presenting her case, using angel dust as an example of someone who has gone through a lot of progress in the last 2 episodes. In order to prove that, they decide to watch them through a mirror that reflects what's going on in hell and how they're spending their night, I guess. So while all of them are out at a bar, Cherry Bomb is trying to get Angel Dust to let loose. Angel Dust decides not to drink, and that's proof that Charlie shows to prove that he's changed. However, he does end up drinking after more convincing.
Are you really telling me you've never had a drink with friends at the end of a hard day?
We don't have hard days. It's fucking heaven, bitch.
The court will allow it.
Fuck yes! I mean...
Oh, fuck yes! I win! Suck it, bitches! You better save the date, cunts, because we're coming to your hotel first.
That wasn't called for, Adam.
Yeah, but did you see the looks on their fucking faces? It was... Sorry.
They all continue to watch the night play out, showing how Angel Dust is protective over Nifty when she tries to get herself into trouble, and how he stands up to Val. Up until this point, we had one decent episode where we get a little bit of insight of our character, and where he learns that there might be another person that he can find some type of comfort in that understands his situation. But that doesn't mean that he's had progress, and that would be substantial as a starting point.
And fuck off. I may have to put up with your bullshit, but you ain't fucking with any of my friends.
You forget who you're talking to?
Yeah, you do. In the studio, and you can do anything you want to me there, just like our deal says. But out here, I get to do what I want. Fuck off.
It just feels like the show wants me to think that this character is completely changed already, even though we haven't really seen significant growth. Oh yeah, and the snake guy, I guess, is in love with the cherry bomb woman, and I think it's just supposed to be a joke until it's not. And I'll get back to that when we get there. Remember in episode 4 when I was giving Viv credit about taking seriously sexual abuse, assault? Well, there's a scene in episode 6 where Serpentious is being dragged into the sex room of the bar, and it's treated as a joke. But Angel being abused in the same episode by his pimp is supposed to be serious. I know it's just a one-off joke and I'm just overlooking it. It's just when you have a character whose trauma is surrounded by this, it just doesn't feel right to have a joke like that. And just when I thought you were taking this seriously, Viv.
I know you. I know what you were. What you are. People don't change. You're
Vivzy Pop. Vivzy Pop on YouTube.
I can handle just fine, but
Vivzy Pop with a 24.
It's like a chimp with a machine gun.
Because we're already on episode 6, it's very strange that we've really barely had the characters kind of like interact in a meaningful way. And it's very weird that Charlie would even try to present the hotel at all to the angels at this point in the show, when there's really nothing she has to prove that there's been significant progress. She should think in her head that we need more time to present something to them instead of just trying to convince them again. And I think that this court scene, more than anything, kind of shows a huge problem with how they don't really know how to distinct angels from demons. Like the way Adam looks and the way he talks, what makes him an angel versus a demon? The way a lot of these characters are designed, I mean, like they could just be demons. Adam doesn't act very angelic, really. He can't even answer when Charlie asks what it takes to get into heaven.
Is everything okay, Adam?
Give me a fucking minute, okay?
I don't know if that's supposed to be the point, but no one else even answers either. Shouldn't someone in heaven know what it is that it takes to get into heaven? And it doesn't really make sense that they wouldn't. Why was Adam even allowed to be an angel if he was controlling toward Lilith in the first place? Is that behavior that angels think should be allowed in heaven? And even if they don't know how a soul gets into heaven, they can decide whether that soul should stay based on their behavior, right? So why is it that they allow Adam to stay and act like this? Why is he allowed to be in charge of anything? Does he have anything over the other angels that would make this make sense even? So when Charlie does ask about what it takes to get into heaven, Adam comes up with this list of 3 things that it takes on a whim. Act selfless, don't steal, and stick it to the man. Then Angel Dust happens to do all of these things when he protects Nifty and stands up for himself against Val. And the list is actually taken seriously as foundation of what it takes for a soul to improve to go into heaven.
Then why isn't he here then?
Yeah, why isn't he here? Wait, none of you know what gets someone into heaven?
This questioning stops now. We know when a soul arrives. We know when they pass divine judgment. It is our job to ensure these souls are safe.
And then this angel that we've never been introduced to starts singing and convincing the higher up angel Sarah that Charlie is right about Angel Dust because he followed these 3 rules that were established a minute ago.
I wanted to save you, the anguish it takes to do what was required.
I don't need your condescension. I'm not a child to protect. With talk of virtue, just pretension.
It really just, it makes no sense to me. The song itself wants to feel like this big cathartic moment where Charlie gets to like call out the angels for being hypocrites.
And what the fuck I've been saying? If hell is forever, then heaven must be a lie. Emily.
But it just, because none of it really makes sense and because they don't even have reasons for why people end up in heaven, it just makes no sense. Like, none of this makes sense. And these are supposed to be the very threatening people that exterminate souls in hell, but they just come off like fools to me. The show says how a soul arrives when they pass divine judgment, but if they know what that is, then wouldn't they know what counts as passing divine judgment? How do they not know what it takes to get a soul into heaven? That's like still baffling my mind. I just can't understand how they don't have that knowledge at all. There must have been angels before Adam because he was the first human and then the first human soul allowed in heaven, so there had to have been higher ups that allowed this then. Why? So after the song, Vaggie is revealed to have been an angel, so the show reveals it earlier in the episode to the audience just to have it be revealed again at the end. And now we have to move on to episode 7 where Charlie's depressed after finding out the truth. Alistair decides to come up and make a deal with her that involves her owing him a favor sometime down the line but not now, and also a favor that won't hurt anyone. He promises to give her information that will help her when the angels come down to attack. Oh yeah, because they've decided to come down and attack now because Charlie started a big uproar in heaven, so now they're deciding to come do this and attack the hotel just so we can have like a battle by the end of the season. So they end up going to an overlord of cannibals to help in the attack because she's friends with Alistair, because Alistair knows everybody, because Alistair is fucking perfect. She then has a conversation about Vaggie and her betrayal, and the overlord, which is, her name is Rosie, I guess, ends up convincing her to hear her out. Again, we know that this is going to be resolved very easily, so what does it even matter? We also see that in this episode, Vaggie ends up going to Carmilla to train or something, or to get some type of tips on how to fight the angels. But again, we've barely seen this Carmilla woman since the reveal that she could kill angels, and we don't really know anything about her still. So why does this whole fight sequence where she's training her and stuff mean anything to me? Why should it mean anything to me? Yeah, it's cool that she can fight and show one of the main characters how to fight in a different way, but none of this was really developed or built in a way where it makes sense to me. Also, Viv says,
oh, I'm so excited for them. I mean, obviously, Hazbin has an amazing roster of like amazing female characters in it. It's really fun. Like I feel like it's an incredibly female-focused show. So Carmilla and Lute are so different as characters. Like Lute is a very serious, like ends up being a very dark, very villainous character, and Carmilla is like this powerful businesswoman who's like just so like she's got her own business in hell, making like basically all the repurposed weaponry of the heaven weapons. So they're able to basically be black market weapons that can kill demons. They can kill each other.
They barely play a role in the show at all. Sure, Carmilla's motivation is revealed, but they barely showed the character at all other than to be the one that knows how to kill the angels and to be the one that is hesitant because they don't want their loved ones to be killed. And it's end up revealed that it ends up being angelic steel that can take out angels. The show tries to explain why no one has tried this before, but I'm not buying it. That not one piece of angelic steel was ever left behind in hell, and that no one has ever tried to explore what it could do. Also, why wouldn't Vaggie and Angel know about this? They must conveniently not tell their angel warriors that the steel they're holding will kill them if used against them. That seems like an important detail that they might want to tell their warriors before going to extinguish the demons in hell. And even still, it doesn't make sense why Carmilla wouldn't be telling everyone this so they can fight back. Instead, they have her explain it to Vaggie through a backstory that feels that it's just there so she can gain information on how to take angels down. And it doesn't really feel like rewarding for either of the characters in this moment, especially the Carmilla woman that's supposed to be such an important character. As far as this other character, we barely see her, and the show wants me to think she's a badass because she ripped Vaggie's wings off and took her eye. Other than that, we see her with Adam once in episode 1 and then not again until episode 6 with the Angel Court stuff, and it's really just to reveal the Vaggie thing. This character overall is just a plot device and not strong or interesting or a badass or really anything. She exists like Vox does to Alistair to make the character we're rooting for look awesome in comparison. I feel like the show also wants me to see Vaggie as this like edgy, badass character, warrior, that's Charlie's girlfriend, but like, I don't know, like she has this really sad story where this could really impact like who she is as a character. She should have questions about who she is or what she wants or like the things that matter in life, especially being trained as a soldier to kill. That should make her contemplate everything about her existence, her identity, her relationship to Charlie. Is she just made for fighting? These are a lot of things that could be explored. There's a point in the episode where Vaggie warns everybody else in the hotel that the angels are coming to attack and that they aren't obligated to stay, so they can just leave before she ends up leaving. And then by the end of the episode, when Vaggie and Charlie come back to the hotel, they see that everybody has stayed and is actually preparing for the fight. And I want to like this scene because it really shows how everybody is coming together to prepare for this big thing. But like at the same time, I just feel like they didn't even show them maybe contemplating the decision at all to give us maybe more character moments where they're interacting together, but they just show us at the end of the episode that they've all agreed to do this. It would have been more interesting to have a scene maybe showing one of them being against having to do this and then being convinced in some way. Again, that gives more time for character interactions and more time for characters to kind of understand one another, but we don't really see any of that. So episode 8 prepares us for the battle that is to take place. So we get a few moments of seeing the characters interact. We get this really awkward interaction between Alistair and Nifty, and it's just really painfully unfunny to me.
To understand your twisted little mind.
But then we get an actual decent scene between Husk and Angel Dust.
Last day of Afterlife, and you're not off snorting a line off some hunk's abs?
You fucked one cannibal pool boy, you fucked them all.
I guess you have changed.
Hey, Charlie said live tonight however we wanted. So pour me a fresh one, and let's get to living.
It feels like Husk is there to keep reminding the audience that Angel Dust has changed, where it's like, you don't have to keep saying that in the dialogue. We should just be able to notice it.
Look, you want to fuck up all your progress? Be my guest. I just thought you were better than that.
Thank you.
And it really doesn't need to be said because to a certain degree, we do see the slight change in Angel Dust over the season. And then the show just keeps up with this gag where the snake is in love with the, what's her name? Cherry Bomb lady. Not really invested in that. Charlie and Vaggie have a scene where Vaggie is encouraging Charlie, and then Vaggie steals the song that the dad and Charlie sang from episode 5. What a heartwarming scene for a girlfriend that lied to her girlfriend about her entire existence. So it's the next day and the fight is taking place. So Adam eventually kicks Alistair's ass and he runs away like a pussy. Now that Alistair's gone, there's no one to hold off Adam, so he starts attacking everyone else. Then Serpentius, God, I really hate that name, I hate saying it. The snake character ends up making the noble sacrifice, but before he does that, he has to profess his love to the Cherry Bomb character, as if we were supposed to be genuinely invested in this, or I don't know. Serpentius takes his ship up to Adam, and just as he's about to attack, Adam just turns him to ash.
Ah, that could have been ugly.
And this is supposed to be comedic, or am I supposed to feel bad? I just, when I saw this, I didn't even know what I was supposed to react, because the show treats it like a joke in the moment, but it also treats it like we've lost this character that we grew to love so much.
It's like she's 5.
It's just kind of hilarious to me. After that, Adam starts to attack Charlie, and just as he's about to, I guess, kill her, of course Lucifer comes in to save the day, and they make it this big thing as if, like, I don't know, like they were waiting on him to show up or something.
Sorry I wasn't here sooner, sweetie.
They even have, like, him make a, like, one-liner that is just so bad.
See, you messed with my daughter, and now I am going to fuck you!
So then he just fights Adam, and, like, speaking on the fighting scenes, they're just really badly choreographed. They're not really engaging in the slightest. And I just really don't really care if Adam or Lucifer wins, but of course Lucifer ends up winning and they end up killing Adam, I guess. The hotel is destroyed, but of course through the magic power of a musical number, they can rebuild the hotel and they can still have their happy little happy ending in hell.
Alistair's missing! Alistair's missing! Alistair's missing!
The show ends up revealing at the end that Serpentius ended up going to heaven because of his noble sacrifice, and they also reveal Lilith. There's also the Vaggie stuff in between that I just didn't really care about. I know it was supposed to be taken as this serious match because it was her fighting the angel that stabbed her in the eye, and it's supposed to be this big cathartic thing when Vaggie ends up defeating her. I just really don't care because they just quickly revealed everything. The show hasn't really given me anything to really feel as far as the pain that Vaggie suffers with as far as being an angel, because the reveal comes and it doesn't really impact her character at all. This is a core part of her identity, and it's just very strange how it's very little explored and really only seen as a dramatic twist that isn't really going to, no one seems to care. We also see that angel that Vaggie ended up defeating, meeting up with Lilith on a beach, and that's how the season ends. So we're going to get more of Charlie's mom, obviously, in the next season. I do think it's interesting that they did hold off on the mom reveal. That might be one of the only reveals that they have done right in the whole show. I guess we'll just have to see how they end up executing it in the next season. Now, before we end up wrapping this up, because there's been a lot that I've gone over here, I think that the musical numbers really do kind of hold the story back from being able to kind of explore other things. I don't really think that there should be a musical sequence in every episode. I think it can disrupt the plot line, especially if it's not really executed right, and it doesn't really need to happen in every episode. And most episodes have more than one song, which makes it even worse. Most of them end up coming in abruptly. Most of them end up being just exposition dumps. It just doesn't really work for the most part. There's a song in episode 7 where Charlie is like rallying up the troops of hell to fight the angels that are coming to attack the hotel, and I don't really feel anything by this. Most of the songs in this show really don't make me feel anything. Like I said, in episode 4, it's probably the only time that the songs that are implemented actually do work, but most of the songs don't really serve a purpose to me other than delivering information in a very lazy way. Pacing is very important, and especially because a show like this wants to be very story heavy, it needs to really learn how to pace the stuff that they want to explore. The show should really show Charlie getting information about things over time, because it just feels like Charlie doesn't have any feelings at all towards everything and the responsibility she has to shoulder on her own, which she doesn't really, because she has her father that will just come in and magically make things better. So I hope that season 2 can work on the pacing and I think develop the characters a little bit more. I hope that it doesn't focus so much on the grand spectacle of everything, because that's not how you develop a show where things feel natural and things feel earned. It ends up feeling cheap. I just think that because the show revealed so much too soon, it's not gonna have a lot of like grand places to go from here. Although I could be wrong, it's just the way that it's paced now. It feels really bloated, like there's so much in just the first season alone. Quickly going over the character designs, I'm not a huge fan of the way they're drawn. They're very sharp and angular, and I feel like there's a lot of visual clutter with a lot of the designs, which can be distracting. And the colors also don't really contrast. It's all just kind of like red, white, pink. Again, it's just my opinion, and the character designs are honestly the least of my problems when it comes to the show itself. The comedy, it's just Rick and Morty, honestly, but worse. And when it's not just swearing to be overly vulgar, the jokes just don't really land for me that much. Actually, let me give you a taste of some of these hilarious jokes.
Holy fucking shitballs.
Lindsay, we know you're in there, you lousy bitch! Oh, fuck! I am so hard right now!
To suck?
I swear to fuck if you say dicks.
Popsicles, you sicko! Get your mind out of the gutter. But you know, dicks too.
Let's fuck shit up.
Bitch! No! Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you! Pussy!
Sometimes I kill mother buds in front of their children as a warning to others.
Fuck you, Alistair! This is better than sex!
Natalie and Jude is better.
What a bunch of losers.
Can you run out of my song?
Your song, I started this.
I'm singing it, I'll finish it.
Oh, you're attacking me.
It's me, yes it's me. I knew you were all waiting for me. I'm here, what a gas. Took a while and I'm breathing.
And this is why I am not really a fan of the show. I understand it wants to be a comedy, but it also wants to be story heavy and serious. And it just doesn't really know how to balance the two. Like we just saw with the whole show itself, it's just all over the place. And obviously people that have been following Vivzy Pop for a while know that she has a show on YouTube, you know, Hell of a Boss, which is another show set in hell. I haven't watched too much of that show, but I'm not a fan of it so far. Really, when I get down to it, the entire season feels like it's very rushed. Like we have to see all the villains, Charlie has to go to heaven, there has to be a huge revelation, there has to be a fight between the angels and demons. And when you have so much of that, trying to pack that into your 8-episode season, a lot of it's going to feel hollow, and that's what we have here. It shouldn't feel like you're trying to cram stuff in as much as it should flow flow naturally to create an interesting narrative. But because the show feels like it's on speed, going from one topic to the next, one character to the next, we just never really feel we can just stop and take in everything that we've just been given. I'm not trying to be overly harsh with the show because I do think that it has potential. It's just, as it currently stands, I'm not really impressed with what I'm seeing. I just hope that the next season can kind of slow itself down and explore things a little better. Anyway, that wraps up just about everything that I have to say. I hope I didn't piss any fans of the show off. That wasn't my intention. I just want the show to be actually good and a show that I can really feel fully invested in and not something that just feels half-baked. Strong!